Greetings, everyone. This is going to be part of a new series that we are doing as we get more focused in on looking at certain franchises. This will hopefully coincide with another video that will be coming out soon, depending on when I'm able to push each one of these out. But what we're doing is taking a bit of a look from my perspective as just kind of a casual player for Warhammer 40k for some of the Grotmas calendars that affect the factions I play. Now, just for reference, I am a casual player. I just play at locals, and I've been interested in doing a tournament, but I haven't signed up for one yet or like really competed at a higher level. So take what I say with a grain of salt in terms of my opinions being as accurate as they can be. That being said, the first one is the Fly Blown Host, which actually came out yesterday in terms of when I'm recording this on December 2nd. But I wanted to wait before I got my opinions out. I haven't seen anyone else's take on this. But I wanted to have a little bit of more time to think on this. Because initially, my opinion was it's not that great because I run a very kind of Highlander list kind of thing where I bring a lot of different units all together to form a cohesive army rather than what would be considered a more optimized list. So initially, this didn't seem that great to me, and I definitely wanted to time think it. And now thinking on it more, I've kind of realized, at least in terms of where I think this is going, why this was made, and what benefits it has overall. So, first up for the detachment rule is the Verminous Haze. All Death Guard infantry units that have not embarked within a transport have scout of moving 5 inches, so able to start a phase or start the initial phase moving 5 inches and have stealth, which makes -1 to hit. So, what do I think of that? I initially think that this is going to be a very much point and control army. This is going to be one that's going to be really good at scoring and kind of really hard to keep off the board as compared to, say, something like Chaos Knights or just Knights in general, where you have a bunch of like big units. Well, you can. I know a lot of people run Armiger Spam, but there are some where you bring a lot of big units and there's very few of them. Compared to this is going to be much more of an infantry list. So let's see their enhancements. So this was for all infantry for the model that has it. The ranged weapons for the unit, for the models that are part of the unit, have assault. So being able to advance and shoot. Really good for getting onto objectives quickly. Death Guard's biggest weakness, or one of their biggest weaknesses, is movement. You move slow. So let's take a look at an average. Let's just look at a Plague Marine. Plague Marine using movement of 5 inches. Yeah, you're not going anywhere. But in advancement, even if you low roll you get like a 2 or something, that extra 2 inches could make the difference of getting into an objective or a place you need to be, getting into shooting range, or whatever the case may be, or not. So that's a huge change. So let's say we have it equipped with a Malignant Plaguecaster, for example. You give him the Drowning Chorus, everything has assault, so you're able to even use Witchfire to get that little bit of an advantage on it. Insectown, I'm sorry, this is kind of hard to pronounce. Murmuration, I don't even think I said that right. That command only each time a model in the unit makes an attack target that's in your contagion range. So that's going to be your starting 3 inches, 6 inches, 9 inches, things like that. So fighting over an objective, or if you're kind of in the mid board and you're within the range, let's say another model maybe nearby or something, reroll wound rolls of 1. That's always good. Rerolling is always going to be helpful, especially on a key roll like wound rolls, where some things may struggle a bit more with lower strength, or even just getting off some, because a few of the weapons do have dev wounds, not many of them, but a few of them do, so getting that little extra chance to get that extra mortal wound in would definitely help a lot. Rejuvenating Swarm, that are only at the end of the phase, Of each phase. Okay, so that changes a little bit. So shooting phase, melee phase, things like that. I wonder even a movement phase. If you get like Overwatch, that could be interesting. The bear regains all its lost wounds. So that is going to be a bit more situational, mainly because for the characters or the units that are going to be able to have it, most of them are going to be equipped with bodyguards. So unless they have something that's able to do, yeah, what's the word? Can't think of it now. Precision. That's what it is. Unless they have something with precision, that I don't see that coming into play too often. Because keep in mind, all these are for infantry. Well, I guess if you went with a Chaos Lord, that would work. So that could be useful. It's something you definitely have to play around with a bit more, and something that is going to take some practice. I'll certainly practice with it too, but I don't have a pure opinion on that without playing a game. My local hasn't happened yet, but I'd be curious to test this out a bit further. And then Plague Veil, yeah. So all this is for infantry, so no vehicles, no monsters. So this wouldn't apply to even Mortarion. When the Bearer's unit is more of the objective markers, that unit can be selected. Only that unit can only be selected as target of a range attack if the model is within 18 inches. So basically, it kind of gets a pseudo lone operative. So you're not going to get sniped out from like a last cannon or like a psychic storm or even like a rupture cannon if you're near an objective marker. So it does force the enemy to come to you, which kind of takes away from some of the issues of getting to where you need to go, but taking a turn or two and getting blasted. So overall, I think for the enhancements, I think these are very good, especially for the points cost. These are kind of standard, but I've seen a little bit higher, of course, a little bit lower. The only one I'd really say would be like, I don't think it'd be worth taking is Rejuvenating Swarm, just because the odds of the model itself having some missing wounds while still having bodyguard is low, not impossible, or if you take like a solo infantry character, which I'm not sure why you would do. So, for their stratagems, let's take a look. Nauseating Paroxysms, start of the fight phase, choose one Death Guard infantry that's in engage range, select one enemy unit within range. That unit must take a battle shock test, subtracting 1. So that's always good. There's always, it's nice to shut down what could be stratagems that make pop up later, whether it's a reroll or a certain like faction base. Let's say, I don't have one off the top of my head. Like, let's go with the Tyranids 5-up Feel No Pain. You could cancel that out before it really becomes an issue. And that way you can kind of have a bit more wounding power. And I'm sure other detachments for other factions have just as a good result that you would need to maybe cut off something like that, especially for 1 CP. Vermin Cloud. During the fight phase, when a Death Guard infantry unit has not been selected to fight till the end of the phase, each time this model makes a consolidation move or pile in, it can move 6 inches instead of 3. So another great movement stratagem to kind of keep the pressure on for slow-moving infantry. So especially with like Terminators, one of the best units being right now. Where are they? Where are not the Death Shroud Terminators? 4 movement hurts a lot, so even losing part of it from pile-in or consolidation, having that extra just 3 inches would make this huge for these guys. So I definitely think another good stratagem. It's a little bit more situational, just depending on how you're moving. But overall, I think it's still another very good stratagem. Definitely one where I can see them being useful. I have the Swarm. They're in shooting phase. One of your Death Guard infantry units that has not been selected to shoot to the end of the phase. Ranged weapons used by this model, including blast weapons, have pistol. So what's this going to do is that when you are fighting in, you have a much better chance of keeping the pressure on without losing some of the advantages that pistols give. So in normal, depending on what you're fighting, you may not be able to shoot at all if you're locked in infantry. So let's say Plague Marines or like the Noxious Blightbringer is fighting against another squad, let's say Assault Intercessors or something. Not giving the entire unit pistol means you're able to fight in a lot more, which is great in comparison to where you wouldn't be able to fight at all infantry to infantry, or if you're fighting up, let's say, vehicle or monster, then you're at -1. So that's going to be a really useful to try to help break out of being locked in combat. I can see that being a very strong stratagem, in my opinion. I would love to see that outside of this detachment. I think that'd be a great stratagem just in general, but I can see why it's locked infantry. Okay, droning horror. During the shooting phase, one of your Death Guard infantry that has not been selected to shoot. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a ranged attack, reroll a hit roll of 1, and if the model is within half of the range, you can reroll all hit rolls instead of just 1. Okay, it took me a second to make sure I read that properly. So another huge one, I didn't mean to do that, where there is just no downside whatsoever, or like situationalness to it, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Another great stratagem where it constantly just keeps pressure on. This could be very CB heavy, so it kind of depends on what army you're running with. But I do think that this is going to be a very good stratagem. It really helps boost up this detachment, which I kind of felt iffy at first, but now, especially going through this again for a video, really kind of bolsters my opinion on that this will be a very strong competitive detachment rather than just for casual play, which I think is good. There should be an option for casual, just like the Plagueborn or the Plague Company, which does remind me that for this detachment, you do not get the secondary contagion, so that's Score and Blight, not the Morgarat or whatever the other ones are. I don't remember their names on top of my head. But you do not get those, because that's the Plague Company's ability, as to where this, you gain just the infantry stuff. Okay, Invigorating Onslaught. I still don't think I'm pronouncing these right. During your charge phase, just after Death Guard infantry has made charge move. So you target your infantry unit and select one unit within engagement range, excluding monsters and vehicles. So that's important. So this is for crashing into infantry. Roll 1d6 for each model in your unit. Engagement, adding 1 to the result if that model is not a cultist or a poxwalker. So, okay, so if you're running like a bunch of cultists or poxwalkers, you do need the 5-up. But if you're running just regular like Marines or other thing, you only have to do it on a 4-up. The enemy suffers a mortal wound, maximum of 6. So this is essentially just tank shock, but for infantry. You charge in, spend a command point, deal some mortal wounds, and then you have some good shenanigans for whether you want nauseating proxims or come next turn around if you're still locked in your fight phase. You could do Eye of the Swarm, that way you're able to shoot your way out and kind of keep on moving, keeping pressure. I like it. I do think it's an interesting choice because most of these units are only like 3 to 5 strength outside of the cultists or poxwalkers, which generally are about 10. So a bit situational just in terms of when you're going to use it for just like normal Plague Marines, or if you're going to use them on Terminators, which have a smaller unit overall. But definitely not a bad one. I'd be excited to see kind of the shenanigans that go around with this attachment overall with the stratagem. And lastly, Mephitic Invigoration. During your opponent's shooting phase, just after the enemy has selected its target. You target with a Death Guard infantry unit with yarn within 6 inches of one or more friendly Mephitic Blight Haulers, that being... Let's get to that page. There we go. These guys. So it's kind of your midline, medium strength vehicle, in my opinion. Always good to have. And that was selected as target for an attack, so you have to be at 6 inches of one of these guys. And then for the effect, until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets you if the strength characteristic is greater than the toughness characteristic of the unit. Subtract 1 from the roll. So that kind of goes along with the Terminator's own ability, that being the Silent Bodyguard. Well, its leading character. If the strength characteristic of the attack is greater than the unit's toughness, subtract 1 from the roll. Just a great thing overall. The only downside is having to tie yourself near a Mythic Blight Hall, but it's never a bad thing to be near one, or just to have one in general. So overall, another good but situational. And if they see that you're running this, they're definitely going to try to take down your Blight Haulers first, which, them being vehicles, don't get a whole lot, you can pop smoke. But this is definitely something where these guys are going to pick up the board fast for a more conscientious player knowing that you're running Flyblown Host. So with that being in mind, that was the detachment overall. Overall, I think it's going to be a good detachment, but what I want to do now is try to set up kind of a mini list. I'm using New Recruit for this. I think it's just best for a free website. Okay, I don't have Flyblown Host set yet. So on this one, I don't think you're going to want to take Mortarion just because he's such a big unit. And obviously, he's not infantry. So this is going to be one of the cases where Typhus is going to have to be your Warlord. You could take Mortarion. He's, for 300 points, he is such a good unit to have. But there's just not a lot for him going on right now in this attachment specifically. So we are going to skip him for right now. Biologist Putrefiers, one of my favorite units outside for the Death Guard. Light grenades, having assault already with lethal hits, and then plague knives. So the big thing and why I like them is that every unit has lethal hits, and in addition you make a 5 instead of a 6. Great ability overall. I would say take 2 of them. Now in terms of what other characters I definitely take 1 Lord of Contagion. I think he's good to have with Death Shroud. A Lord of Villains. I know the Blight Lord Terminators are not in a great place right now. I know they are considered to be the weaker of the 2 Terminators. That being Fortune with T6, 3 wounds. If it's close to the minions, you're able to reroll wound roll 1, so there's kind of coming in that pressure again from shooting. The weapons are the greatest. 3 per auto cannon is kind of my favorite. 4 shots, hitting on 3s. Dev wounds for 7 strength and sustain 1. But overall, I do still like these guys. I think it's good to take at least 1 squad with them and have the Lord of Virulence go with them. So I would say take 1. In terms of Plague Marine squad, I'm actually saying you probably gonna want to take like 4 squads. I think this is going to be one where you can't go wrong with too much infantry. In terms of what else we would need, I know I would say take 1 Foul Blights on just to get that fights first. And then for the last one, I like a Malignant Plaguecaster. I know it's not a super common model to see. Select 1 unit within 18 inches, roll d6, suffer d3 mortal wounds on 1. 2 up. Each time the model makes a melee attack, subtract 1 from the one roll. So it's good, and then it's a shot. Move. So you get a little bit extra movement too, depending if it's shot. As comparison, I would say maybe take a Plague Surgeon. I don't know what the Tallyman does. What does he do? Just hit roll and command phase. So this is going to be definitely a CP heavy, so I'd say definitely you're going to want to take a Tallyman here. But in terms of what else we have, I would take a squad of Poxwalkers just so you're going to have that bit more of OC control on the back. They keep on the help front near a Mythic Blight Hauler, which definitely I do think you want to take 3. Just simply the fact that knowing once people learn what this detachment does and seeing how it does, this is just speculation right now on my part. It may be a bad detachment, I'm not sure. But I do think you want 3 just in case they pick yours off or try to pick them off quickly, because while they are a good like medium vehicle at T9, saving on 3s with a 5-up invuln, which is nothing to scoff at, don't get me wrong, at 10 wounds, it doesn't mean that these guys are going to be super invulnerable. A good, like a heavy flamer or something that can definitely pick wounds off this fast, and you definitely want to have it because your only defensive stratagem is based on this guy. I would say it's worth taking 3. In terms of anything else, I would take I take 2 bloat drones. I think they're good. I would run them at one at a plague splitter and one at a heavy blight launcher. Reasons for that is this is going to suffer a bit more with heavy toughness. So having a bit of a heavier attack or strength 8 AP2, damage 2 with lethal is able to put on a little bit of better pressure. And then it's always good to have something for Overwatch outside of, let's just say, like a normal Plague Marine or your Biologist. Then, so from there, the only other thing I would... Oh, I need to get the Death Shroud in. That's where I'm missing points. 2 Death Shrouds, one for Typhus, and then one for the Lord of Contagion. We have an extra 320 points. And I don't really think you need to take another one. You might be... So I do like having a Great Unclean one. Well, actually, I run Radagast instead of just a normal Great Unclean one when I do a standard list. So you have the points for it. So let's just put him in. So Squad of Nurglings. And then Radagast. So this is kind of my ideal list that I would run, and then you have 50 points left for your enhancements. I would definitely give one to probably one of them to the Biologist, probably Insectile Murmuration, and then maybe for like Typhus and his Death Guard or his Death Shroud Terminators, maybe Plague Veil. Just because it's going to be a little harder to move them up the board once they come in from Deep Strike. Yeah, you're going to want to use Deep Strike a lot with this. And Scout, so just to give them that little bit of extra cover. But this is what I would say go with. Enhancements just depends on how you want to spin it. Of course, this again is just speculation on my part. I have no idea what this list would do outside of it. But for right now, that is what I'm going to say. That is my prediction. Again, this is coming from a casual player who has some experience with Death Guard and a few other armies. I started at the beginning of 10th edition, so I know I'm nowhere near a veteran by any stand or strand of imagination, but I do still think I wanted to put my opinion out there just for maybe a different perspective. But with that, I will be covering a few others. I'm not going to cover the one that came out today, the Dark Angels Detachment. I talked to one of my friends who plays Dark Angels. He wasn't a huge fan of it, but overall, I don't have enough of an opinion. He rarely plays it, so I don't really have any idea of what that could mean for the rest of us. I will be covering Tyranids. I'll cover Gene Stealers because I'm kind of sort of hanging on the edge of them. Been collecting them for a minute, but I'm not super fan of playing them, although they can be fun from time to time. Agents of the Imperium, just going to be Death Watch. And outside that, if I think I have any opinions on it, I'll make a video about it. But that'll do it for now. Thank you all for watching. You're all dismissed.